Good evening again, everybody. This is Barbara. Um, I trust that your day has been all that you purposed it to be. We are talking about the 10 commandments, or the 10 utterances, or the 10 sayings, or the 10 guides. Um, and we have talked about those on one of the tablets that relate to uh, the human's relationship to Elohim. And we started, let's see, where are we? We were talking about do not kill. We started on the other tablet, which relates to the human's relationship with other humans. And we started yesterday with do not murder, or do not kill is what we've traditionally known it as in the traditional Christian Bibles. But it was originally interpreted do not murder. Let's see if there are any questions or comments about anything, inclusive of what we talked about yesterday, but anything. Anybody? Comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My thoughts are not your thoughts. Okay, if Jesus said, God said, if my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. If we are Elohim, why is it that we don't have the same thoughts of what is his thoughts?
Well, I'll let me see if there's somebody else who wants to answer the question, because I usually just dump in. Anyone else with a comment before I provide a comment? Who is this, Angela or Kathy?
Kathy.
Kathy, thank you. Any other comment? One of the things about Elohim is that there is perfection there. There is total perfection, because unicity is one is perfection. And while we have attributes and aspects of Elohim within us, because we're created in its image, we will need to be at a very I don't want to use the word high, enlightened spiritual awareness in order to know exactly what the Elohim is thinking. So it's not, we can't know exactly what Elohim is thinking. However, Elohim has given us sort of a roadmap, if you will, so that we can begin to continue like a flower, like a rose, unfold and grow in spiritual awareness. The 10 Commandments are the thoughts of Elohim. And so that's a starting place. That was a starting place for the Israelites. And it's a starting place for us who are at that level in terms of our spiritual awareness too. So the issue is, if we can do what the commandments say, what the utterances say, what the sayings are all about, we're well on our way to understanding and knowing the thoughts of Elohim. And Kathy?
Oh, okay. I hear you.
Anything else? Does that resonate with you?
Yes. Thank you.
So we're all striving toward that ideal goal of perfection. And once we are ever there, we're going to disappear from this earth plane immediately, because we will be at such a heightened state of awareness that, like Elijah, there's no way that we cannot be one with the Most High. Other questions or comments about anything?
Barbara.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
I have a comment, I think, and possibly heard you tonight, and possibly a question. I was listening to the discussion yesterday about thou shalt not kill or commit murder. And when we talked about the conversation, I want to see if I am seeing the utterances the right way. Because as I'm looking at the utterances and everything that you've been teaching that resonates deeply with me, when we start out, you talked about them being written on pillars of sapphire, and they were utterances and suggestions. But I look at that second verse, and it says, I'm the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of bondage. If I look at that as all the trauma that they had been through from having been slaves, I see the utterances as being given to us, bring balance with us in our relationship and how we relate to understanding what it means to be Elohim and our Father, relating to our Father, and how to relate to each other. And when we talked about killing yesterday, I remember we had spoken with George a long time ago because he referenced someone as being lazy, and we were saying, no, we don't want it, because when we stop to think about whatever it is, lazy, idiot, stupid, whatever we may call anyone at anything, whether we say it or whether we think it or not, as we think about that, if I look at myself as being Elohim, I see that as a missed opportunity to show someone how to be Elohim, and I see that killing them as cutting them off from them seeing the potential through me mirroring back to them what they can be. And as we ended yesterday with Ron talking about forgiveness, I find it easier to forgive myself if I look at that and say, you know what, that was a missed opportunity for me to show someone that they too are Elohim. But however, it doesn't make me any less Elohim, because like you just said a moment ago, based on Kathy's question, we're not looking at perfection, but being, I don't want to say it, being perfect in our attitude of wanting to do right, but we may not always get it right. So it's not a thing to beat ourselves up and stay in that point. But if I'm seeing this, that is a missed opportunity on my part, even if I look at how that comment that I'm thinking about someone else, because if I think that about you, whether I say it or not, I'm going to treat you accordingly, and therefore I relegate you to stay in the position where you are, and I don't give you an opportunity to be elevated by mirroring to you what you could be if you knew that you were not animalistic but could be Elohim. And so it makes it easier to forgive myself when I realize that, you know what, I missed that opportunity. If I look at it from a point of these utterances were given to bring me to a place of balance, then I say, you know what, that was a missed opportunity for me to stay in a place of balance. I'll correct that and I'll move forward. It makes it easier for me to move forward. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on those comments. Am I there? Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you? Did you hear me?
I'm just a talking cat.
I'm like, okay, I think I dropped the call. I was looking to see if I dropped the call.
What I said was thank you very much for bringing that up. That's an excellent way to look at it, because if you look at what the opposite way that somebody could handle that is, they could really be down on themselves, call themselves things that they are not because they are Elohim, even though they were thinking that of another human. But I really like the way that you approach it, because what you're saying is it's a missed opportunity. It's like missing, not sin per se, but I missed that mark. I missed that opportunity. I'll get it next. I'll do it next time, kind of thing. And so it doesn't belittle you, and at the same time, that thought that you had in your mind, which had a vibration attached to it, that thought does not have the fullness and in terms of resonance of the vibration when you go back and correct it. When you go back and say, shucks, I missed that opportunity. Next time, I'll be ready, or something like that. So I really like that approach. It keeps you from downing yourself. after you've thought some things about someone else. Other comments. Kathy would like some of the comments. Yeah, go ahead.
That we know the thoughts may happen. Absolutely, they may come. But once again, it's a point of not staying there, not beating ourselves up and staying there, but also recognizing that if I cut you off, and I see murder more as cutting you off. I think that was one of the things that S said on yesterday, that ST said, that murder could mean. And if I'm cutting you off from what? From the ability to see who you are, because I should be mirroring for you who Elohim is, even though I may not ever say those words to you. You should be able to see something different about me. And as a result of that, hopefully one day that'll inspire you to want to change what you're doing and maybe do better. And it may not happen with you. You may just be the one planting the seed, somebody else watering, and somebody else to get the harvest from that seed. But I'm looking at all of this together because I just see these utterances as a way of reminding me how to stay balanced. And I think that's very important. And I think we've said those things, but it just resonates with me more and more as you teach more and more. I see it when I internalize it. I just feel like it's helping me to stay balanced, what you're teaching right now. And I just want to say how much I appreciate what you're teaching. So thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you as well. And I appreciate the comment you made also regarding the thought, even though you just might think something, because that gets into the macro. And I think the other point you made was that if we keep thinking something or saying something, even though somebody doesn't hear us, then what's going to happen is that thought might become speech one day and we literally say it, or it may become an action, as you said, and we follow up on it and treat somebody as if they were whatever we thought they would be. So I appreciate you saying that. Everything, I think we said yesterday that from Jesus's perspective, whatever we think and whatever we, in our heart, and whatever our eyes see, that's tantamount to performing the act. And so that's why, knowing who we are, we have to be very, very mindful of not only what we say, but the thoughts we're putting out there, even in the macro, because even our thoughts are important at this point. So thank you very much for bringing that up. Anybody else got any comments for Kathy in response to what she said? Go ahead.
No, this is ST. I was going to say, we one of the other things I'm seeing the utterances as a way to unify us. And we always, when you talk about unity, what better way or easier way to unify us if we all know that we're Elohim? And we talk about always being love and kindness, and really displaying that to people who necessarily don't agree or oppose us or give us a hard time with certain things. But the ease, I was thinking about it when Kathy was talking, like the easiest way to bring about unity and oneness wasn't, the utterances, because everybody was basically conforming or had to really follow the same guidelines. And then for us now, present day, if we can get as many people to realize who they are, that's going to be the easiest way for us to really unify and overcome, some of the entanglements or things that come up as people oppose us or as people try to harm us. And then that unity kind of like, it also strengthens our intuition as far as our decision makings and interacting with people. So I was just thinking about that as Kathy was talking.
Thank you, S. And the point you're making with the unity resonates, because in unison, we can also send our thoughts in unison when we think about a particular thing. There is power in that when we are on one accord in terms of where we're focusing our thoughts. So your point is well taken.
Barbara, I have a comment. This is Evelyn.
Yes. Yes, Miss Evelyn.
And I just want everyone to know that what we're talking about and everything that we get on Monday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's really working, because I only call one person an idiot today. And normally it's more than one. So I do want you to know what we're talking about is working with the unity and everything, what Kathy just said and S just said. So what we're talking about is really working.
Thank you, Evelyn. Anyone else?
Miss Barbara?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
Mr.
Ron. I was listening at Kathy, and it reminded me of something there. This struggle, and as Evelyn just said, is quite real, and I'm listening how Kathy's wording and her solution reminded me of some scripture. It is after Cain slew Abel that Eve says, "You've given me another son, and he can take the place of Abel." And what she is saying is, you're going to have times where you don't do what is right, and you kill that side of enlightenment, or that side that to honor God. You're not going to make that right decision, but there is something that's there, that's built into you, that gives you a second chance. And the energy of Seth is just as strong as that of Abel. So, as Kathy was saying, you do, those things happen, and I, how many times a day do I have to forgive myself? But you are prepared. It helps you prepare without going in the dumps for not handling a situation right, to recognize that there is going to be a second opportunity. And it may not be that day. And to be honest with you, it may not be with the same people, but it gives you a chance to share that enlightenment to the universe nonetheless. And so it just reminded me of that. Her wording is, I have another son, another seed to take the place of this one. And that's a mouthful to listen to that and not understand quite what she's saying, but it just kind of echoes what Kathy was saying to me anyway.
Gotcha, Ron. And what better way to manifest the Elohim that we are to another human is by starting with self and forgiving self. And the faster we can forgive self, the faster we will be able to learn to forgive others. And so that's just so powerful, so powerful. Other comments? I got to follow up on that again. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Thank you for the question, Kathy. That started with the issue of, okay, what do I do when I miss that opportunity? Forgiveness, and Ron, you talked about that a little bit in the past, but forgiveness of self opens us up to so many things. It opens us up to being free to share who we are, rather than to bear the brunt of guilt or shame or doubt. Because when we cannot forgive ourselves, when we do not forgive ourselves about something, those are the kinds of burdens we feel as we walk in that unforgiveness. So forgiveness is so freeing. I'm so glad you guys brought this up. We have to learn to do that, and to do it quickly, especially with ourselves. Especially with ourselves. Because how can we manifest the Elohim we are to another human when that's the burden that's weighing us down? So thank you for that comment, because that resonates so much with me, and I appreciate that reminder for myself as well.
I'm sorry. I missed Kathy's question. If she doesn't mind repeating it, I heard the discussion that the response that Ron gave, and yours, Barbara Jean.
Kathy?
I said, if God said, my thoughts are not your thoughts and my ways are not your ways. So if we are Elohim, why is it that we don't have the same thoughts, or what is his thoughts?
And the other Kathy also spoke, Pastor, so I don't know which one you're talking about.
Okay. The other Kathy, what was your question?
I made more of a comment, and it was kind of looking back at from the beginning, when you look at when God is talking basically about you out of a situation that caused trauma, about you out of bondage, and how I see these utterances as a way of bringing to us balance, and that when we think negatively towards someone, or when we make a negative comment to someone, we see that as nothing more than a missed opportunity. And I went to where we were yesterday and looking at thou shalt not commit murder, and I used SC's definition of murder, which was cutting someone off. We cut them off from being able to see the Elohim that they are, because we're not mirroring that to them, and we are relegating them to stay where they are. Because if that's how I see you and I think about you accordingly, then I'm going to treat you accordingly, and therefore you will always be that stupid person, idiot, whatever word we want to use. That's how I'm going to see you. But instead of, when I realize I've done that, instead of getting in a place of unforgiveness with myself and being upset with myself, I have to recognize I'm still Elohim. I just missed an opportunity to remain in a place of balance. And now that I recognize that, you know what, I missed that opportunity, I also have another opportunity, hopefully tomorrow, especially if it's someone on my job or someone that I have to come in contact with again. Then I have another opportunity to mirror what it means to be Elohim for that person who does not know they are Elohim and who are not acting accordingly. We have that opportunity. And we were just talking about, and S made some comments about how that brings us into a place of unity. And we were just basically looking at not staying in a place of not forgiving yourself, seeing it as a missed opportunity. Don't beat yourself up, because you are no less Elohim in that situation. You are still Elohim. That's not something you lay down like people lay down religion. You don't lay down being Elohim. That is who you are. And even if you had that thought, even if it came to you, even if you uttered something you shouldn't have, forgive yourself and wake up the next day or the next hour, because day is relative. What the next opportunity? Let me say it that way. Be ready for the next opportunity to do better. And what I mean by do better is just to be who you are, who you really are, Elohim. And that was the comment I made. Some of it, I just summarized it quickly.
Well, both Kathys. I hear what you're saying, and when you ask about what are the thoughts, we're being taught what the thoughts are by the mistakes we make. And what we call mistakes are opportunities to correct ourselves so that we will be the thoughts of Elohim. When the scripture talks about my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways, if you really think about it, it's talking about those who are not in balance with the Creator. Now, why do I say that? Because if our thoughts could not be the thoughts of Elohim, then how is it that Jesus could say, not only will you do what I've done, but greater things you should do, meaning that we can do what he did. And in order for him to do that, he had to have the thoughts of Elohim. He said, I do what I see my father say, which means that his thoughts are the thoughts of our creator. And his ways were the ways of our creator because he never condemned. He always lifted up and forgave and healed and brought people to a place of balance. So I don't see it as an impossibility for us to have the thoughts of Elohim. And the idea that you guys mentioned about forgiving self, in actuality, that has to take place. However, if we are thinking something negative or we utter something negative, we quickly correct ourselves within ourselves, and that brings the balance. However, if you keep mulling it over day after day, that's when you have to forgive yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Barbara Jean?
Oh, yes.
No, I'm turning it back to you, babe. I'm done.
Oh,
Unless-
I thought you were ready to go on. Okay.
Now, the reason I asked that, usually I don't ask what the questions were, but I found it intriguing where the discussion was. That's all.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? We were at questions and comments, Pastor, so that's where we were. Any other questions or comments? Alrighty, so go ahead.
Oh, well, I will say this in addition to what I've already said. When cutting people off is not only a verbal thing, it's also a thought. And as Kathy with the case said, that when we make those negative comments about people, for example, if I say that all of the white supremacists are ignorant, or that's fine because they are ignorant as to what humanity looks like or what it is. However, if I say that all of them are stupid, now I have labeled them differently than I did by talking about what they were not aware of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I do that, then we're cutting them off. Like Donald Trump, dumb, you're cutting them off. How does that work? When we put things in the macro, and we also put in the macro that Donald is dumb, then there is no chance for him to pick up out of the macro what we're putting there, because not only have we put in the macro, we have labeled him as being incapable of understanding or even receiving what was put in the macro. Can you see that?
So that's that missed opportunity that Kathy was talking about.
Yes.
If we realize it and move on. Any other comments?
I want any questions about that.
Yeah.
See, I've been saying for you. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, but despite, we're not, with the insults or bar, but we still need to call out what something is. If it's hate, it's hate. If it's, we still are responsible for calling out not the person, but their actions, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's why the white supremacist is not discharging anybody. How you label people, personality, how you label them in relationship to humanity. Any negative label cuts people off and silence their ears to what we put in the macro. And I'm talking about spiritual ears, of course. Now, to recognize what they did, that's not cutting them off. That's a truth. It's not. It's not negative to say that Donald Trump instigated what happened in the Capitol in terms of the insurrection. That's not negative. That's the truth. And there is a difference. However, if I call him dumb, then now I've labeled him. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Hello? Yep, I'm
I
sorry.
would
Was,
to everyone about what I'm trying, the point I'm trying to make.
Gotcha.
Because there is a difference. There's a major difference. I know you know this. There's a difference in labeling people and expressing what people are guilty of, or what people did, the actions of the people.
No different, because I guess it goes back to what Kathy, definitely it goes back to what Kathy and Barbara said too about, that's where, forgiveness, and you can't do one without the other. So you definitely have to understand it, but also even in a time where something slips or someone slips towards us, we've got to be quick to forgive. And I know that's,
Right.
We had a whole months on that, but that's the hard part.
Yep. Well, I don't think we can ever get enough for talking about forgiveness, because it's so doggone powerful. I'm done.
Okay, so you guys are already plunging toward utterance number 10, because everything that we were talking about, these intangibles like forgiveness, etc., all these things originate in thought, and that's what I'm getting ready to get ahead of myself. That's what number 10 is reminding us, that everything originates in thought. So anyway. All right, if there are no other questions, comments, we'll move on to utterance or saying number 7, which has to do with, which says, you shall not commit adultery. You shall not commit adultery. And that's sort of paired with, in terms of our relationship with Elohim, the do not commit idolatry. Because idolatry is spiritual adultery. That's the relationship between those two. Adultery refers to sexual union between a married person and someone other than his or her spouse. Now, originally, in terms of the Jewish tradition, that's not what it meant. It was a woman a woman who was someone's spouse had sexual relations with a man, and the woman was in the wrong in terms of the way that she was treated. But we've come a long way since then, and so adultery refers to sexual union or relations between a married person and someone other than his or her spouse. A person has corrupted his or her marriage, in essence, by introducing a third party, a third entity, something that's not helpful, thus altering or changing or polluting the relationship. Does that sound a little bit like idolatry, where a third entity is introduced between Elohim and the human, and it pollutes the relationship because we're seeing something between ourselves and Elohim and not understanding that we are the image of Elohim. Someone was going to say something.
I have a question.
Yes.
So with Hagar, did Abraham commit adultery? And with Leah and Rachel, was it? Or Rebecca? Or was that adultery?
No.
And
No.
uh,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and the reason I'm raising this is because the considered Jews still have more than one wife, and
Right.
the Ethiopian Hebrews, who are the true lineage of the Hebrews, they do the same thing. So my question becomes, is that adultery based on culture, or is that in keeping with the early scriptures of the Old Testament? Because go
Are
ahead.
you getting ready to answer your question? Because
No, because the reason I raised it also is because I see Jesus. I'm sorry, I see Mary and Joseph, but I don't see a major change in that, in those relationships, because of the way Jesus dealt with the concept of divorce, and the concept of marriage is left up to the human to determine what it looks like, because there is no prescription for marriage in the scriptures other than intercourse.
well, back to what you were saying, in the time of Abraham, it was culture and tradition based back in that time. And the other thing is that it says sexual union between a married person and someone other than his or her spouse. And as you said, the Bible is not that prescriptive about, okay, how many times you can get married. So there could be two or more wives, as you say, in some cultures even now. But
Didn't
in
Jesus
terms,
address that though?
pardon?
Didn't
Say again?
Jesus address that at some? I was asking the question. I can't. I was trying to remember. What didn't Jesus? Wasn't he asked the question and didn't he address that at some point?
Yes. In Matthew 5:27, he says, "You've heard that it's said by them of old time, you shall not commit adultery." Matthew 5:28 says, "But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart." And he was talking about intent and motive. Now, he was not, I don't believe he was necessarily talking about, because even in his time, there were people who had more than one wife, if you follow what I'm saying. So the motive and the intent is someone other than one's spouse. And if you do that with someone other than your spouse, even the thoughts. Remember, we said that thoughts, and in terms of what Jesus, in terms of Jesus' perspective, thoughts and speech and action are all the same. So Jesus kicked, unlike what this particular utterance is, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," and it's very prescriptive. If you'll notice that every time Jesus spoke about one of these utterances related to humans and humans, he kicked it up a notch. He in terms of the expectation was set higher. than even what it says here. And it reminded us every time he did that, everything had to do with thought and motive. Because remember, spiritual things are not necessarily things you touch. They're intangible. They are at the thought level, if you will, because that's where the seeds of ideas, the seeds of action are rooted in those thoughts. The seeds of speech and action rooted in our thoughts. I don't know if that's the one you were specifically talking about as it relates to Jesus.
I think so.
Go ahead, Ron.
I was just trying to. No, I'm just thinking out loud. I was trying to remember and search for it, see if there was something else that he had mentioned, but I can't remember.
I'm looking for something as well, Ron. And the reason I keep
It
raising
seemed like it
is because we have
was one wife, though.
Say what?
Seemed like it was something to do with one wife. Never addressed that?
Not to my knowledge. I do know this. When he
addressed divorce.
When he talked to the woman at the well, he did not condemn her. Remember?
Okay.
See, the reason I'm raising these questions is because I do a lot of counseling, and a lot of people are confused as to what was expected and what marriage is, not necessarily in the case of adultery, but also trying to understand why was Jesus silent on adultery when he talked to the woman at the well. Why was he silent on that? And the questions that I raised about Abraham and those guys were questions that have been raised to me as well. And Barbara Jean, I wasn't thinking about what Jesus said in relation the statement that you just gave about Jesus speaking to marriage, and with the understanding that there were people who were married to one person, one wife. I mean, married to more than one wife in the day that Jesus walked the earth. So, just
Go
ahead.
In Matthew 19:4-6, he talked to the Pharisees and he's telling them that, reminding them that, have you not read the one who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and for this reason a man leaves his mother and father and joins to his wife, and the two becomes one. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. I mean, you could imply that, but what? Well, here's a question: can one be one flesh with two wives? That's the question. Which might get us to where we want to go to.
Yeah. You cannot do that physically, no. But what is flesh?
What is what? I'm sorry.
Flesh. Is he talking about flesh and or is he talking about attitude, personality, etc.? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Mm-hmm.
I know someone on this phone has access to researching that particular word, flesh, and I wish you would, so that we can see what it is, because it seems like to me some years ago we explored that, and I just can't remember where we took it from. Any of you guys remember that?
I'll check with Douglas Clark. That sounds like something he might address.
Okay.
And are you speaking like from bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, or what?
I'm speaking from comments that Jesus made about one flesh becoming two. I mean, two become one flesh. That's what I'm talking about. I want you to understand what the reason I say that is because everything has spiritual connotations, right?
Yeah.
And I want to understand the spiritual connotation as well as get clarity on the physical connotation, because I don't know about you guys, but I know the people in Gaffney who were in that association and the one in Union had discussions about this ad nauseum, about what did this really mean. And and it was dancing and the marriage issue. Those
Oh,
things were
you couldn't dance either?
well, I
Anyway.
the one who they assigned to deal with the dancing. They didn't like what I said, so you can pretty much guess how I dealt with it.
Yeah, okay.
So but the other one, no, there were no conclusions made. There's just a lot of questions left, and I
Yeah.
have a feeling that there are still questions left about this, and I do see this as being as almost like the on thy father, on thy father and mother. Yeah, when we ask the question, what does that look like? So I do think that it does beg for more discussion and understanding, because I don't disagree with you, Bob. I'm trying to understand context of
It's
what you.
4561.
You're in the concordance.
And that's the Greek, 4561 in concordance.
I was trying to find flesh in the Old Testament, because when it goes to the Greek, I try to see what flesh means in the Old Testament.
Well, you look in the old and I look in the new. 4561 says, from the base of 4563. So I'll have to go back there in a second.
Yeah.
I'll go up there in a second. But anyway, it says, as flesh, as stripped of the skin, strictly the meat of an animal, blah, blah, the symbol of what is external, or as the means of kindred, or I like flesh of my flesh, passions, human being, carnal minded. That doesn't tell me anything. 4563 says means a broom to sweep. 4561 refers me to 4563. And I don't understand a broom to sweep. Flesh.
Honestly,
It doesn't make sense to me.
this one doesn't make sense. I'm looking at it in Genesis.
Okay, and what does it say?
2 and 21, where it says that he closed up the flesh instead thereof. It says flesh of the body, humans, animals, male organ of generation, kindred, blood relationships, etc. Then it says it is derived from 1319 in the Hebrew, and it is a primitive root that speaks. It's a primitive root that speaks to being fresh. It's a primitive root properly to be fresh, to be full, cheerful, to announce a messenger, preach, or publish something.
You're in the Hebrew now in 13:19 because I'm looking at that too. Yeah, you're right. To
Yeah,
be fresh.
yeah.
Flesh is to be fresh.
So it's, and I do take it that that's a good part of the confusion or the lack of understanding that we have so far.
Yeah, because men put this together, and sometimes it just doesn't.
It just doesn't make sense.
Mm. So I guess back
And
to the question. Go ahead, ask.
it's Ron. In
Ron, I'm sorry.
the original, in the original meditation, page 24, it says in Old Hebrew, a person does not actually have a body. Instead, he or she is infleshed in order to express the divine image. The word spirit in Hebrew and Aramaic also describes what we might call today a psychophysical concept. Ruach in Hebrew or Rusha in Aramaic can mean spirit, breath, air, wind in English, and Elohim in a Hebrew word for God. So when Hebrew mystics breathed with the Ruach Elohim mentioned in Genesis 1 and 2, they could feel their own Ruach uniting with that of the Holy One. It was all one substance. So it makes it sound like this thing, flesh, huh?
You said all with one what?
Substance.
Okay. So go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry. I just didn't hear that last word. That's all.
Well, I was just trying to sum it up because it makes it sound like the only purpose for flesh being in flesh is so it can hold your spirit and you can be united with that of God. You can have that experience of feeling that the same breath with that of Elohim. That's at least that's what I got from that.
Well, when you look at what you read about it being in flesh, right? That's what it's actually saying. That's what it's saying. So we have flesh to be representative or to be the image of Elohim.
Yeah, it specifically says in order to express your divine image.
Right.
So each one of us has a divine image.
And this idea of freshness comes from, I use the example in Isaiah the messenger who's fresh-faced or flushed from his arrival with news that was usually good. And then it talks about the flesh or skin of mankind and animals, presumably as that which is carried on the bodily frame and that which is flushed with color. So what would they call black folks? Are we flushed? It doesn't make sense. Anyway.
But then, because when it says one flesh, it has to be spiritual. And the reason I say that is because you don't literally become one flesh in terms of your body, your skin becoming
right.
one.
Yeah.
So it would have to be spiritual.
And so is that one flesh meaning? Does that mean whole, or mean complementing each other, or does that? Yeah, I follow where you're going with that.
But it definitely means complement each other, because that's the purpose of having been created the way it was anyway, in terms of feminine energy being molded from the man, Adam, the human being made aware of that femininity. And that was done in order to complement the male energy. So that
Genesis 6:13. Right.
Go ahead, babe.
In Genesis 6:13, it talks about all life, all flesh, all people, and that flesh and life and soul sometimes are interchangeable synonyms for mankind as a whole. I'm still back to my question about, can a person be one with one flesh with two eyes?
If flesh is spiritual, yes.
Okay. So you're seeing that as different from just
Just
bodies,
skin.
literally bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, because literally you don't become one.
Well, if we look back at Leah and Rachel, they both were able to complement Jacob in different ways.
Yes.
So that's what you mean from the spiritual perspective.
Yes. Because look at the spirituality that's embedded, or that's shown rather, through Sarah and Hagar.
Yeah.
So I honestly believe that it's based upon what we've looked at and the things that I've seen over the years. I honestly believe that marriage is a spiritual thing. It doesn't matter how many vows you take. If you're not connected emotionally or / spiritually, that's not a marriage.
And the marriage certificate that we sign, that's just for legality purposes, right?
Yeah, that's where you get Social Security and inherit stuff.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Yes, so that's one of the reasons I guess we didn't bring it up, because that is purely based on materialism.
I guess looking at this, I want to make sure I'm seeing this though. When we studied Abraham and Sarah, or whether we studied that other boy with Leah and Rachel,
Jacob.
What's his name? Jacob. We look at this from a spiritual perspective, and we can see the different sides of ourselves, right? So I am Leah and Leah is me. There's a part of me who is necessary, and there is a part of me that seeks pleasure, and I'm simplifying it, of course. Looking at the two women, it might be easier to look at it from Rebecca and Isaac, because when you see that, you see the different sides or the different functions of the human and what needed to take place. You don't see it as a history story with several people. So I guess what I'm saying is it's hard for me to see it both ways. If it's spiritual, it's conceptual, and all those people are part of who you are as a person. All those voices, all those functions are in you. But if you take it literally, it complicates things. And I don't think it was meant to be looked at that way.
I agree with you.
I just,
because the whole concept of adultery in the Old Testament, where the laws were given, right? The whole concept of adultery was someone who had an illegitimate relationship with the Creator. Those who left the Creator were adulterous nation.
Yeah.
Remember?
Right.
So Barbara, something you said
And
earlier that go ahead, Ron.
nothing. I'm just thinking out loud. But those would be the two lovers. You have you're in a relationship with Elohim, and whatever else, the golden calf or whatever, or is your new. Never mind. I'm just thinking out loud. But yeah, I don't see it figuratively. It's kind of hard to grasp this, and it goes back to me your question the other day, when you were asking about the other one. Which one were you asking about, Pastor? You asked about
So
was it
commandments?
honoring the father?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That-
And see, it's hard because this is written for a purpose and for certain people who are traveling in a certain direction. So it's hard to understand or give examples to people that are not looking for that same thing or going in that same direction. Because your thoughts are there to see this clearly.
However, if the sayings are prescriptive enough for everyone in terms of being a general guide, there ought to be some basic threads that we all can see
right.
in them. And if we can't see the side that relates to us spiritually as Elohim and our relationship with Elohim, then that's why the other side is there. Remember, we said that they speak more specifically to actions of humans who have not transitioned and enough to understand that they are more than just their actions. And so then that's why you don't kill, don't murder, don't steal, don't cheat, all of that. Whereas then when Jesus came and talked about it in 9, if you even think about any of it, you already did it. So even the ones on tablet 2 ought to be speaking to those who are not necessarily very spiritually aware.
I think, Barbara, it involves more, as you said earlier, intent and motive than we realize. I think I believe that it does involve intent and motive. What is your motive? Is the motive simply to be physically pleasured, or is the motive tied to the affection that you house? Also, if you really think about it, if we trace the history of the interpretations of these utterances, we find out that everything was actually interpreted to fit religion and to control.
Yeah.
So I do believe that this whole concept of adultery, if it's applicable to us, it is applicable to us in a spiritual sense. If my motive is like, oh my gosh, she looks good, and I'm going after that, then that comes under that. That falls under that. What I'm saying in essence is that what is your motive? What is your intent? And that has to be factored into everything that we say and do. Because let's think about it. If these people are in the same house and they've gotten married, and now they are such disaccord, their relationship is fractured or torn apart actually, and now it's torn apart to the extent that they barely talk to each other and sleep in separate rooms but they put up the facade in public that they are married. So the question becomes, are they married? So if one of them engaged with someone else, then did they commit adultery? Based on Catholicism, yes. But did they do it based on the scriptures? Are the scriptures speaking to the spiritual aspects of the human? That's the question. And not wrong.
And I say yes.
What you say, Ron?
I say yes. Exactly. I agree with that.
Does it speak to spiritual?
Yes.
And another reason I say that is because if you really think about it, the Bible does not tell us how to govern this earth. It simply says dominate it. However, it does give us a prescription for how we are to be Elohim and human. And that prescription are these 10 ordinances.
And so, unlike the Israelites back then, they added 611 additional ones.
Right.
No. Whatever the difference is between 613 and 10. They added those additional ones, and they were very prescriptive and related to material kinds of ways of relating.
Yes.
Okay.
It's something, Pastor, you said years and years ago. And you said that this book is more about us than it is God. I don't know if you remember making that statement. That's what I see. I think
it is.
Religiously, it's about God, but spiritually, it's about man, and it's showing you who you are. It's about the human, rather, showing you how to be human and how to search and find self and become familiar with the rhythms and the vibrations of the universe, so you can be one with Elohim. And those are two very different things. And I think sometimes the lines get blurred, depending on your audience and who your subjects are that we're talking to, or maybe from ourselves based on our own backgrounds. But I think sometimes those two things get confusing.
You know what I think is happening now? For generations, the two things that we have labored the most on is honoring father and mother, and now the idea of adultery. Why? Because how long has it been since these things have not been resolved? Just brushed over and defined or explained in a manner that is acceptable to us, as opposed to in a manner that the scriptures are speaking to us. Everything we know have been taught about the 10 Commandments came from Catholicism. There's no doubt about that. Every bit of it. So that's one of the reasons I truly believe that we have to read the scriptures for the first time and see them through the eyes of those people who are in the East, as much as we possibly can, of course. And however long it take for us to get to an understanding, that's what we do. Do you guys agree with that?
I'm thinking about
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm thinking about not committing idolatry. And if these scriptures mirror each other, to commit idolatry is to put anything above or to substitute something for Elohim and to worship that thing, whatever it
Yes.
is, whether it's a graven image, whatever is a graven thought of something that's substituted for Elohim. Spiritually, that's adultery. And so what makes it adultery? What is it about the relationship of the human and Elohim that would make it adultery for the human to put something or to worship something else other than who it is, or who it is, who it's created in the image of,
Right.
right?
Because
So
submission. I'm sorry. I thought, okay.
go ahead.
I was going, it's submission. So the scripture is talking about if you have an intimate relationship to something else to the point where you submit to its authority, then you are committing adultery. Why? Because you are under the authority of your creator. And that's the only one you should worship. And I do understand the struggle here, because there have been so many times when men or women have been with other people simply because they lusted for them. And people have been not damaged, but literally destroyed in some cases because of this. And, and that, when we talk about adultery being spiritual, it does not legitimize someone who's been with somebody physically or intimately simply because they want some pleasure or they want to satisfy their selfish desires and have no other relationship in terms of affection with the person. Does that make sense?
So the motive, because the motive and intent is not to show forth Elohim. It's for
Right.
you, selfishness.
You. Is for you. And when we talk about the other wives that men had, they were responsible for them. They took responsibility for them. It wasn't that they were that they was going with somebody and then they got tired of it and walked away from it, or that they took no responsibility for them in terms of protection, provision, and being there for them in their time of need. They did that. They literally did that. But now what we are seeing, and a lot of it comes from the state that we were in during the period of slavery. Promiscuity, men fought that, women fought that, but they were forced to do that. And a lot of that came because of the of being forced, as well as what you witnessed with the plantation owner, and how the plantation owner, or the overseer, and anyone else white could take advantage of you, whether you were male or female. Even if they were homosexual, they still could take advantage of you if you did not want that type of relationship. So a lot of what we are dealing with is based upon the hurt that we've seen as a result of these, and I call them, for lack of a better term, illegitimate relationships. Does that make sense?
So the historical hurt the
Yes,
stuff that
yeah,
we've gotten through the years from what we've seen historically in terms of relationships with
right,
slave owners and enslaved people.
right.
Hey, Pastor,
Yes, sir.
I think the verse that I was thinking about, and I probably wouldn't have brought this up if I thought about Paul wrote this, because I don't
Oh,
study Paul.
I
yeah,
saw Paul's stuff too, and I just that didn't go there.
Yeah,
But
I did. But that's the verse I was thinking about is 1 Timothy 3:2. But
the
yeah,
husband.
that's
Yeah,
a husband of one wife. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So, but
yeah.
okay.
And that's that. I guess I've just blocked a lot of Paul out of my mind because I've dealt with that in the past uh, with deaconships and stuff
Uh-huh.
and bishop. Yeah.
I just knew I had seen it. It was just bothering me because I couldn't think of where it was. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it came to you because what happens is that there are people on this phone who are going to either they are going to do or talk to other people. They're going to bring that up that Paul, what's in Timothy, and we understand quite clearly that there was absolutely very little, if any, respect for Paul and his writings, and that comes from the original disciples, Peter and Barnabas and the rest of them. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you found it. For those of you who are on the phone, I know you're listening and processing, but I do want to say this to you. This is what we do when we talk about having a teacher conclave or teachers meeting. This is what we do. We discuss stuff and we go to every source we can find and we talk about it until we can get some understanding. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So bear with us. We'll get there eventually.
I also see this is still potentially in the context of the culture as well, because if you're in the United States, for the most part, generally, there's an expectation of one husband has one wife. Generally, in countries where there are not that many children, and the perpetuation of that particular race is in doubt. In the context of what happened, even with Abraham and Sarah, I mean, the Jewish people went down to Egypt with what, 77 souls, 77 or so, somewhere around there, and came out with more than 2 million. So there was more than one wife in a sense to perpetuate that nation. And so there probably are some countries even today, or some places even today, or even in South America where there are so many tribes that we don't even know of, where this may still be the case. And the issue may not be lust or selfishness per se, but a cultural kind of expectation which yields children, which grows the group, the tribe kind of thing. And so,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Just to support what you're saying, Barbara, there's a tribe in Africa today that women marry women simply for survival because there aren't enough men in that region of the world for them to have husbands. So in order to bring the families together and be a tribe or to have somebody with you. So as you're saying, this could well have been for survival and to have a clan so that you could maintain or survive in the wild or in those primitive times. So that is, you're absolutely right. That is a part of some cultures. And it had nothing at all to do with pleasure.
And this been happening in Yemen forever, before it was named Yemen. And to this day it is. The ones who are dependent upon clans to survive, all you have to do is look at Afghanistan and the lands in the mountains of Afghanistan, where it joins Pakistan. That those clans are there for survival, and they are doing exactly what you're talking about. So I do want us to understand clearly that as Ron reminded me earlier, that the scripture is more about us than it is God, because God knows who it is. We just don't know who we are. And the rules for our existence, or for our becoming what we were created to be, are right there in the scriptures. And I suppose that's one of the reasons I said some time ago, let's just read the red and the rest will take care of itself. And what I've noticed in the last few years, our discussions have been centered around either the Old Testament or what Jesus said, and that's it. I don't know whether some of you've noticed the same thing, but that's what I've seen probably for the last, 5 or 10 years, maybe. So is there a conclusion, or is it still open?
Well, I think part of there's some facets that we can pick up and hold on to. One of them relates to motive and intent is everything in terms of spiritual things, and that it's not about the action as much as it's about the thought before the action. In terms of what Jesus was talking about, if you even look at someone to love and lust after in your heart, and it's related to selfishness. It's about self rather than unselfishness, or rather than is this the best way that I can manifest God in the earth, kind of thing, from a spiritual perspective. As it relates to this culture, given this culture and the fact that the perception is that one person, one woman, one man, and that a third woman, given the mindset of this culture, a third woman who's not married, who interferes in that relationship, is kind of a what do they say? It pollutes that relationship in a sense. If anything comes in that pollutes your relationship, that's something you have to deal with. If it's a split in your relationship for whatever reason, and it's supposedly something that is not helpful, meaning it distracts you from, it takes your attention away from who you ought to be, then there's something going on as well. There's something you need to deal with.
It doesn't have to be somebody unmarried. The distraction can come from someone who's married, but
That's
not
true.
married to you.
That's true. That's true.
Well, I think you summed up the whole thing in your first sentence, and when you talked about motive and intent. Uh, if it is not for the sake of survival, and what motive and intent do you have for multiple people in your bedroom or whatever? If your motive and intent is to grow spiritually, so everything else it's a distraction. It is something more than what is needed to move in the direction that you have said or desired to move into. So I think that kind of sums it all up. If I'm not in a poverty-driven state that I need to be in a clan of people, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to simplify it too much, but
My understanding of it is that, well, earlier on you saying that it can't be both. If it's spiritual, it's spiritual,
right,
and
right.
I do believe that it is spiritual, and I do believe that the physical deals with more about intent and integrity.
You said the physical deals with more about intent and integrity, which is
Yes,
motive. Same thing, right?
right. Yeah. What kind of
Okay.
integrity
Okay.
is questionable integrity? You know, if you what's
Yeah.
your motive? That's what I'm saying. But I do believe that the overwhelming, the overarching understanding of this is really the spiritual relationship with Elohim, as you described earlier, Bob.
And anything that detracts from that, and it doesn't even have to be, it's anything that detracts from that or distracts from that as well. Misses the mark in a sense. Misses the mark of our manifesting the Elohim in the earth. Okay. Well, we've come to a place where I believe a number of us see the current position. I wonder if we had time to think about it, or would there be other questions that further allows us to see the truth of what this is saying.
Why don't?
But the only way I can do it is compare with what it's compared with idolatry, and look at what spiritual idolatry is, because spiritual idolatry is teaching us something about. Spiritual adultery, which is idolatry, is teaching us something about physical adultery.
I I would suggest if anyone have questions, not just now, of course, ask them now. However, during the course of the week, if there are questions, bring them Saturday, bring them Sunday or Monday.
Or text them to us so that we could be thinking about them.
Right. Absolutely, because this is not as simple as you think it is. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I live for these kind of discussions, by the way.
I know.
I do. I do. That's why I don't understand how people can expect to learn or understand anything if they dissuade people from raising questions.
Well, okay. We will start with adultery again, just to see if there are any loose ends we have to tie up or any things that we have to clarify before we go on to bearing false witness. How about that?
Works for me.
Okay.
All right.
All righty. So we'll pick up again on Saturday.
Sure.
Thank you all.
Saturday morning.
Thank you for your questions.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your attentiveness.
Hey, Pastor.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Hey, this is Rainey. Can I call you after this?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, y'all.
Okay.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.